we are going international. We are shooting this podcast in Dubai.
Welcome in Dubai. I'm originally from the Netherlands, so I was born and raised in Rotterdam. There was no foreign TV, no foreign radio, everything was in Chinese. That's actually been my red thread to my life. I like to develop businesses in areas which are still difficult to enter. Yes. And then I got headhunted for SQM. We believe that it is important, rather than importing potassium nitrate, that we produce local potassium nitrate. If you want to go into the specialties, then you need to have more localized, specialized distributors who are very good in a certain knowledge in a certain crop.
Yes.
Like potatoes or lemons or oranges or rice.
You made a JV in India, China, Thailand.
Yeah.
And as per you, what are the 3 most important points of setting up a JV which goes for a long term? JVs, what we are discussing, I am the product of one of the JVs which he has initiated, and see how the destiny is. At that time he started Coromandel SQ, and then I joined it, I learned there, and now I'm sitting here and talking to him.
Yeah.
So thank you for initiating that.
You're welcome.
Coromandel SQ.
We met Coromandel in, I think it was in 2007. We met with Ravi Chandran at the time and with Ravi Prasad. That's where I saw the difference between India and China. We usually believe that we decide, but it's not we decide.
It's the
growers who ultimately decide. So we made a take-or-pay deal with IFCO at the time.
Okay.
So I was very much involved there with Dr. Singh and Mr. Washti and people there, Kumar. And why did we choose IFCO? Because we believed that IFCO, with all their cooperatives, their network, they had a huge distribution network with 50 million farmers. We have mines in Germany, we have mines in Canada. We produce MOP, we produce SOP, we produce Kieserite, we produce Epsotop, CMS, corn kali, patent kali. In India, we have 170 people working for us. Our MOP is organically certified in Germany.
Okay.
So it's an organically certified product, because the product in Germany which we mine is not, solution mining. It's really a mineral which we mine. And there's always this saying that we need to produce more fertilizer because people need more food. Okay, I have my own view on that. Chinese SOP, water-soluble SOP, disappearing from the market because of the CIQ. Of course, the price went
Price hike. One personal question, if you would like to share, you can share. I just learned, coming to your house, that you married a princess. How did that happen? Hello, welcome to Supal Sharma Show. Today's podcast is a special podcast for 2 reasons. First, we are going international. We are shooting this podcast in Dubai. Second, the guest to what we are having today, he is a veteran in the specialty fertilizer industry. He has more than 20 years of experience and worked in multiple countries and multiple companies to contribute to the global specialty fertilizer sector. At present, he is Managing Director of K+S Middle East, and with his immense experience and his advice, we'll get to know more about him and about his learnings, and definitely it will be a wonderful podcast. So welcome, Olaf.
Thank you very much.
How are you?
Fine, how are you?
Fine.
Welcome in Dubai.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you for accepting the invitation, doing this podcast on Sunday.
No worries.
And getting it done at your home and inviting us at your home. Thank you so much for this.
You're welcome.
So first, tell us about your initial life, from your schooling days, from where it all started.
So I'm originally from the Netherlands. So I was born and raised in Rotterdam. I come from a family on one side who were actually growers. So my grandfather grew cauliflower, beans, salad. So I have a kind of agricultural background in that sense. I went to a traditional grammar school in Rotterdam, also having Greek and Latin, so the old-fashioned kind of grammar school. Then I studied Chinese and economics partly in the University of Leiden. And
So
then
at
also,
that time, why Chinese? Like,
that's a very good question. I was actually studying law, but that was nothing for me. And then I had a roommate at that time in where I was living in Leiden. And I heard a little bit, this was in the late 80s, 87, 88. And then I listened to him and I thought it was quite interesting. And then I chose to move from studying law to studying a language, which was Chinese, because I thought it was quite interesting. And at the same time, studying Chinese, you could also differentiate yourself into economic subjects. So I did partly Chinese the first 2 years, and then the last 2 years, when you differentiate, I also did economic subjects at the University of Rotterdam. And then from there, I did 1 year military services also in the Netherlands, which was still compulsory at that time. Actually, quite enjoyed that as well.
and that military service would have shaped you a lot because in future you would have got disciplined or something like that with
Yes,
the military services.
yeah. I think so. Yeah, it was quite interesting for me because when you finish university, you of course think.
At what age?
I was 24,
Okay.
if I remember correctly. And then you of course think that you're quite a person, that you achieved a lot, and then you go back in the army, and then you get both of your feet back on the ground, of course. So yeah, no, it actually taught me a lot. Also, I was taught quite a lot of management things in the army. You know, how to deal with teams, how to fulfill tasks with a team. So that was quite useful. And then my first job started in '95. That was my first job was actually in China.
Yes.
Later on in the education, I also did an MBA in Manchester University, but that was a bit later. So that is my education. But my work really started as of '95 with my first job in China.
Okay.
So,
You were talking about China and
Yes.
the footwear industry, the intermediate footwear industry.
yeah,
So
that's
at
a long
that-
time ago.
Yes. So at that time, this was your first job.
Yes,
So how was your experience of your first salary at that time, and what
my
did
first
you do?
salary,
Yeah.
which was not that much, but
How much can you, if you share it on the camera?
yeah, sure. I thought my first salary was around, if I remember correctly, around 3,000 guilders, which was around 1,500 euros, something like that. But you could get a room in which was above the office. So it, again, you know, the first job for me was you lack, of course, the experience as what an expat or should make. But it didn't really matter. Actually, for me, it was a lot of fun.
Yes.
It was also a lot of hardship because my first posting at that time was in Fuzhou. It was in the south of China, opposite Taiwan.
Okay.
So that was not a city where a lot of foreigners were living. So actually, I was living a lot with, of course, with local people there. I think there were 3 or 4 foreigners at that time.
Okay.
There was no foreign TV, no foreign radio. Everything was in Chinese.
And plus, it was China.
Yeah. So and China was still developing at that time. So also China itself went through a lot of changes. And my job basically for that company was to source factories in China to produce shoes. But also to source raw materials to make shoes, so eyelets, leather, and actually it was a kind of, how would you say, a kind of business development kind of job. So most of the time I was traveling around in Fuzhou, looking for factories, and then we would place orders for, I don't know if you know the brands Bata shoes.
Yeah, Bata shoes, we
these
know
kind
very
of
well.
shoes.
Yeah. It's a very famous company in India.
Yeah. Now these shoes we were actually producing in China. I visited a lot of Nike factories and Adidas factories because China at the time was still very popular because it was low cost, of course.
Okay.
That has changed now. I think most of the shoes are now produced in Vietnam. But that was my first job. Yeah.
And then I think you moved to Netherlands Business Support Office.
No, actually afterwards I moved to Hong Kong.
Okay.
So from let's say 96 and 97, I was during the handover, which was also quite interesting. I worked 2 years for a company called Parsons & Whitmore, and I was doing premium. So let's say the cup you're having here with your logo, we were actually making that. So if you open up a bank account, you got a free calculator, or you got pens, or these kind of things. On
So
festivals, you get these
basically
giveaway
gifting items.
Giving away, yeah, they call them premiums. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was doing that for 2 years in Hong Kong. And after that,
there you sort of learned branding, right?
there I learned how important
I'm just
certain
trying
companies
to, yeah.
thought branding was. Yes, correct. Our customers were mainly Dutch customers. So you had Heineken beer, you had some banks, ABN AMRO, and they were looking for some giveaway items with their brand on it. Did that for 2 years, and then I was asked. Got in contact with a let's say an old roommate of mine from university. And again, he knew somebody who was working for the Ministry of Economic Affairs in the Netherlands. And at that time, in the late 90s, the Netherlands government, the Ministry of Economic Affairs, they wanted to set up trading offices in smaller, they call it secondary cities in China. So not like Beijing or Shanghai, Guangzhou, but Tianjin, Wuhan, Chengdu, to actually help smaller and medium-sized companies in the Netherlands to set foot into China. And these offices were there to help them to enter the Chinese market. And I was asked to go to Chengdu, which is inland China, close to Tibet.
And at that time you learned fluent Chinese. Can you speak?
Yeah, I studied Chinese, of course, but yeah, you really started to learn Chinese, of course, when you were in China. I went to Chengdu in 97 until 2000. And there I got involved with, actually you could say that was the start to get involved in the fertilizer business. Because the city or the province I was located in was more attractive to large multinationals rather than small and medium-sized companies. So I was involved with the Chinese local government to set up airport projects, natural gas projects, but also some agriculture projects. And that's how I got in contact with a company called AkzoNobel, which was a big Dutch-Swedish multinational in chemicals, coatings and pharmaceuticals at that time. And they were doing a project in Sichuan where they grow oranges in micronutrients, chelated micronutrients. Yeah, which was already at that time quite advanced because China at that time was not very advanced in fertilizer. So to right away introduce a very expensive EDTA fertilizer.
And this was in which year roughly?
98, 99.
Okay.
So we did a project.
So that was your first task or your first challenge to introduce in agriculture, and that too to introduce a product which is not regularly.
Well, we helped the company to set it up. So I was not responsible for the sales, but we helped the guys who wanted to set up that business to actually find the farms, to get the right outlets, etc., etc. And that's how I got in contact with AkzoNobel. And then Akzo said, well, if you do this for the Netherlands Ltd, why don't you do that for AkzoNobel then as a company in China? And that's when they asked me to move in 2000, to move to Beijing, to their head office called AkzoNobel China. And there my job was more to develop business for the business units, which was coatings, pharmaceuticals and chemicals.
Okay.
So we did a lot of projects in Beijing at that time, who won the Olympic bid to do coating projects for the stadiums. We set up factories. We helped setting up factories. And we did some other projects also for the chelated micronutrients. I did that for around 5 years.
Okay.
In Beijing and partly also Shanghai.
So that was your step where you got introduced into chemical industries, fertilizer industries.
Yes.
And the interest started developing there.
Yes, and that was also always what attracted me. So I always started from business development, and that's actually been my red thread to my life. I like to develop businesses in areas which are still difficult to enter or just opening up. So I've always been involved in that, whether that's sales development or product development or strategic development. So I'm more interested in that kind of business. That's always been a little bit my background.
Yes. And after that, AkzoNobel?
And then I got headhunted for SQM.
SQM.
Yeah, okay. So that's how I got to SQM. Headhunted by SQM. And SQM at that time, of course, was very much involved in specialty fertilizers. So I had some experience, of course, in the micronutrient industry. And they also, at that time, the SQM and Yara had an agreement with AkzoNobel to redistribute their micronutrients. So because of that link, they believed it made sense to have me in the team. And I was hired as the sales director for Asia Pacific. Asia Pacific for SQM at the time was from India to China, and from China all the way down to New Zealand. So it was quite an area. I was because China for SQM was quite important. It was an area where they did a lot of potassium nitrate, mainly in tobacco. And so the idea was to base me in Beijing to open up a new head office for SQM in the Asia Pacific, and that's what I did. So I started actually by myself, and then I had to hire a whole team of people around me.
So it started from the scratch there.
Well, there was an existing business for SQM, but in China, but mainly only in tobacco. And the whole idea was to also expand in China more into the vegetables and the fruits. And for that, what we did is we actually separated the business from tobacco. So we had a separate tobacco business, and we had then a more specialty business in fruit and veggies.
And at that time, like how you used to face the competition of the local potassium nitrate compared to the SQM potassium nitrate, which you will be pushing in the China or the Southeast Asia?
Well, it was the way we set up. Tobacco was one side. So there we had a name for ourselves. So that was the tobacco growers demanded also Chilean nitrates. That was quite important for them. But for the fruit and veggies, what we did is we divided China into crops. So we looked at crops because our main product was, of course, potassium nitrate. That's how we started as a specialty. And we said, look, which crops are using really potassium nitrate or who can benefit from potassium nitrate? And that was, for instance, potatoes. We had, for instance, citrus fruits, tomatoes, some greenhouse areas. And then we looked in which area is an important or a strong distributor. So rather than appointing one or two distributors for the whole of China, we actually developed regional distributors.
Okay.
I think in the end, when I left SQM, we had around 30 regional distributors. But they were very strong in that area, in that particular crop. So they had no desire to go from, let's say, Inner Mongolia all the way down to Yunnan. So they really wanted to focus there. And then from one crop, we realized they could also sell it into some other crops in that area. Yes. And that's how we actually started to expand. And what we did is we did a lot of trials. We showed them the benefits of potassium nitrate, and that we were not a company which was just trading potassium nitrate. With all due respect, a lot of Chinese companies produce, and they trade more potassium nitrate or products. But what we did is we not only produced, we also delivered it, but we had a whole agronomic scheme around it. So we actually added value for the farmers. And then what we did is we let the distributors then have these regional meetings and let them talk about the benefits to their colleagues. And it was word by mouth.
It was a good strategy.
Yeah, it was a very good strategy, and that's how we actually started.
And then every distributor used to be supported by the agronomist team?
Yes.
And the agronomist team, you would be the SQM one?
Yes, we didn't have that much agronomists, so one agronomist had, let's say, 4 or 5 areas.
Okay.
And we really focused on certain crops, and then we showed the benefits, and then we let the farmers tell the other farmers what the benefits were. And that's how you build up a brand. And then when you see the benefits, then price doesn't become that important anymore.
Yes. And
that's
when
usually what I saw.
It's a Chilean, it's a Chilean NOP coming, and it's a constant NOP, and you are there with the support team also.
But what we also realized then, of course, is that we believe that it is important, rather than importing potassium nitrate, that we produce local potassium nitrate. Because SQM at the time had only a limited volume of potassium nitrate. China is a low-cost market or low-price market. You're not going to sell all your potassium nitrate into China. You want to sell it to the countries where you get the best returns. So the idea was behind it that, why don't we then set up a local production unit of potassium nitrate? And then the tobacco is still imported potassium nitrate. And the local market, let's say the potatoes and the fruits and veggies, that we supply from our joint venture, which we did in Migao.
Okay. And so what was that joint venture? What was that joint venture?
It was a 50-50% joint venture with Migao.
Okay.
In Chengdu.
Yeah, Migao in China, Chengdu.
And at the same time, we also integrated that whole chain from potassium nitrate also to produce water-soluble NPKs.
And I understand Migao is very good producer of SOP, right?
They also produce SOP. They produce water-soluble SOP. At that time, they did mainly Mannheim process SOP. I think when I was there, he had 5 factories of SOP. So he was already quite strong in tobacco and in the vegetable market. So together with Miguel, we also teamed up in the tobacco market. But also in the vegetable and the fruit market, he was focusing more on the SOP. We were focusing more on the nitrate and potassium and the water-soluble NPKs. So next to the KNO3 factory we built, we also set up a water-soluble NPK plant in Qingdao with Qingdao Star. That was SQM Star.
Okay.
So our KNO3 produced in China was also raw material
for NPK blends.
Yes.
And then it used to go in the SQM brand and
correct.
Going ahead.
Correct.
And like SQM is always known, if you feel free to answer, SQM is always known for the Chilean NOP.
Yeah.
But in China, when you would be producing here locally, so how you used to get the benefit of the SQM brand?
That was a very good question. That was also our main challenge because the Chinese farmer still, I think like a lot of other farmers, they still trust imported goods more than
that happens in
produced.
India also.
Yes, and that's a phase we had to go through. So we again, by showing that the quality we produced in China was similar as what we imported, then you gain the trust of the farmers, and they know, of course, there's a whole SQM team behind it.
Yes,
and that gained their trust. But yes, that was a challenge, and also with the water-soluble NPKs. I mean, therefore, as a company, we also developed 2 streams: an imported SQM brand and a locally produced joint venture brand.
Okay, so you had 2 brands where one
SQM,
would be the imported would be the SQM brand, and then the JV would be the local one.
Local one.
So, and then you have 2 kinds of market.
Yes.
Like one who want a premium,
yes.
they buys like SQM,
Yeah.
and ones which you want have a little lesser price, he buy local. So
volume versus value.
The volume and the value increases.
Correct.
So it's a very good thing, and this is how you scaled it up.
Yes, that's
Very nice.
how we try to scale it up. Yeah, and of course, there's a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
But it's a long-term vision you need to have.
And how's been the acceptable? How's China the acceptability of the foreign goods, like the imported goods, with the Chinese farmer in general?
Overall, it's very good because it's still, and that's because some importers, they cheat the farmers. Some farmers were exposed to fake products. I think it's the same in India and some other countries as well. So there is still this trust issue. Although I must say, my own experience in China, you have very good producers of very good quality products, whether it's NPKs or water solubles. So I would say nowadays that thing of fake product into China, or that you have malicious products coming in, I don't really think that's the case anymore. But at that time, that was still an issue. So overall, once you've built that brand, and Yara is also a very good example of that, and once you have a very good and well-known brand, then you have a good advantage. Farmers trust you.
Yes.
It's all about trust.
And how's the land size in China? It's
average is 1 mu. It's about I think a mu is, if I remember correctly, is 0.14 hectare, something like that. So very small.
It's a very small.
Same
so you really need a big distributors and distribution channel to go ahead with the producers.
You need a specialized distribution channel.
Yes.
So we used to do a lot of business with Sinochem. But Sinochem was a big importer, and they of course had their channels. But we realized if you want to go into the specialties, then you need to have more localized, specialized distributors who are very good in a certain knowledge in a certain crop.
Yes,
like potatoes or lemons or oranges or rice. And that's also how we, for instance, introduced foliar products into China, where we had some distributors in rice-producing areas, either north or in south, who were very good in not only in the pesticides and herbicides, but also in some specialty fertilizers. And foliar go very nicely together with herbicides and pesticides.
Yes.
Now, and then if you then develop a water-soluble product to it, like KNO3 plus some zinc and boron, again, a very expensive product, but once you show the benefits then it goes. We
I
did the
think
same in India.
it's the same in India. We also so in cotton, like there is a mandatory spray of potassium nitrate.
Yeah.
But in India, when you blend that product potassium nitrate and you add zinc and boron, what is needed by the cotton, it goes very well. And with plus foliar is a very easy to show the adaptation because you just have to spray rather than drip irrigation, where it's a difficult process.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but again, it's a long-term view you need to
Yes.
have. You need to have a strategy, and you need to also have that vision to see that through. It's not that you're going to sell in year one a lot of foliar products, and maybe you start with one container. But ultimately, if your aim is to sell 2,000 tons of foliars in let's say India or China, then you need to have a vision on that, and you need to show people that the product actually brings benefit. So it's all about how much in the end does the farmer have in his hand.
Yeah,
in terms of
and
money. And
how
that's
the
you need to
quality
show them.
you need to show them, and the quality goes.
Yeah.
And as you told about JVs also, at that time you made a JV in India, China, and Thailand.
Yeah.
And as per you, like what are the three most important points of setting up a JV which goes for a long term?
Trust, vision. I would say you need to trust your partner. So you need to trust the local environment, and that's usually an issue with foreign companies. Foreign companies don't understand the local, let's say, situation, and don't understand the local habits, so to say. So you need to have real trust in your partner. You have to have an aligned business plan. So you need to have a partner who has a similar kind of vision, who wants to go ahead in that similar kind of business. And you need to build up a good team of people and trust in your people. That's another thing also. That's why I always come back to trust. It's you need to have a good bunch of people together, and you need to trust them. They take that responsibility to build up that business, because otherwise you keep on being micromanaging, and then that brings you nowhere.
Yes, that.
So you need to trust your local guys in the field or in your office to actually execute that business. But yeah, those for me are the three main.
And you can share your Indian JV also with Coromandel.
Yeah, no, I think if you now talk to Coromandel, I think talk to them, and they're very happy with the business.
And I will take a pause here. Like the JVs, what we are discussing, I am the product of one of the JVs which he has initiated, and see how the destiny is. At that time, he started Coromandel SQ, and then I joined it. I learned there, and now I'm sitting here and talking to him.
Yeah.
So thank you for initiating that
Coromandel
SQ, and really I have learned a lot from there, and it has shaped my life entirely.
Yeah.
So
that was a very interesting journey. I mean, we met Coromandel in, I think it was in 2007. We met with Ravi Chandran at the time, and with Ravi Prasad. We had a similar view, especially Dr. Prasad. We were very much aligned. And then we both came to the conclusion that it was best for India and for both companies that we said, look, we believe in this market. That's also important. You have to believe in the market. Even though India at the time was quite small in terms of
it was
water solubles.
initial. It was like almost around 50 to 70,000 tons of water solubles.
Yeah, and the water soluble NPK was still very small.
Very small, and it was only in like 2-3 states at that time, like 3-4 states, like in western part of India, like Maharashtra. It was there, then Tamil Nadu, Andhra, and basically it started from Maharashtra. So it was at a very nascent stage, and the vision what you people have taken at that time, it was a very right step, because with that the industry has grown and Coromandel SQM JV has grown.
Well, it was not our vision to start with. There were some local players already at that time. I think it was
Mahafeed was there.
So there were some local Indian guys who already had that.
Who tried, who understand the specialty fertilizer and imported that first few containers there and brought it to India and taught the Indian farmer that water solubles are better for grapes, pomegranate, and how the market grows.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so we had that vision with Coromandel. We felt very comfortable with them. We had long negotiations. I can also tell you the differences between. Let's say how.
So what happens if you can share, like in general, like when you are discussing with the JV partners, like
China goes very quick. So you negotiate.
Like China is like whether we'll do it or we'll not do it. It's very quick, like this.
No, the negotiation to actually get things on paper goes fairly quick.
Okay.
The building of the joint venture also goes quick. So the same, because it was a replica, what we did in China, the same as what we had in Thailand and in India. With the Chinese, I think all in all, it took us a year. So negotiation was about, I don't know, 2 months, 3 months up and down. And then the whole construction was about 9 to 10 months. Investment was the same, money-wise. And while in India, it took us nearly 1.5 to 2 years. So there, it was the whole the negotiation was longer. It was more on the details. But the difference was that when the joint venture started to operate, and I'm not saying it's good or bad. These are just differences in how different countries do things. Once the joint venture in China set up, then the real negotiation started. So then you really start, then the owner or your partner wants to change certain things in the contract or in the setup. And that usually you solve via, dinners and lunches and, meetings. While in India, the whole process to get to your contract is long, very detailed. But once it stands on paper,
it's done.
Then it's done.
Yes.
So that's where I saw the difference between India and China. So to be very frank, and not to be disrespectful to my Chinese colleagues, but the JV in India, once it started, ran actually better than management-wise and strategically wise. It ran better than the one in China. In China, we were constantly still negotiating on certain parts while the joint venture was already up and running, and then things changed. So again, different ways, different cultures,
ways.
Different ways.
You have to adapt to the local culture.
Otherwise,
and what about the Thailand one?
Thailand, Thailand was also quite interesting. It was with a family, with the Charlie family.
Yeah.
And that was also a very interesting joint venture. There, SQM had a minority share. And there you could see you dealt more with a family who had more the interest sometimes of the family at heart. But still, it was a very good business for us. And there also, you had some differences. Thailand, for instance, is very much, if you have differences, saying no for them was more difficult than for us. So no doesn't, or yes doesn't always mean yes.
Okay.
So they really have to understand the sensitivities. India was quite clear, no, especially with Coromandel, no meant no. And we had some healthy fights also sometimes, but that was good for the business, I would say, because in the end we always made it happen. And yes. I think today Coromandel is quite happy to have this facility in their hands.
Yes. And the JV has been profitable and it has grown very well. And it has benefited both the sides. Like SQM has also increased their market share in India.
Yeah, I think
and the Coromandel also has developed in the specialty sector. Yeah. Then let's move on the life from potassium nitrate to life to the urea, the SEBIC.
I saw that. But it was not pure urea. I was not in charge of urea. I was in charge actually to set up a specialty department in SABIC.
But you have been into so many companies. Like say for example, potassium SQM's basic main production is potassium nitrate. SABIC main production is urea. MOP also. So when you join them as the specialty head, or to start their specialty business, there is always in mind that you have to, like in potassium SQM, you have to make more products based on the potassium nitrate, and in SABIC you have to make more products what they are producing.
Well, correct. So the streamline to make urea, of course, is natural gas, ammonia and CO2 make urea. So they already had a supply of ammonia. Now I don't have to explain to you if you have ammonia.
Yes.
And they also have a joint venture with Maden, which produces DAP and MAP and have rock phosphate and phosphoric acid. If you have ammonia and phosphoric acid, you can produce water-soluble MAP.
Yes.
Just to say it very black and white. Of course, it's much more complex than that, but at least two raw materials were already there. So yes, I agree. There was you look at the raw materials, but at that time SABIC used the ammonia mainly to produce urea. But what we looked at was use your raw materials and your joint venture connections to actually start producing MAP, for instance, or UP, urea phosphate. But also from the urea side, because urea is still undergoing a kind of change from just pure urea to coated urea to urea plus inhibitor. But potentially the next step is to include nutrients in the urea melt, and you actually make an NK fertilizer or an NKS fertilizer or an N-magnesium fertilizer. So there's all kinds of new technologies online to, other than using the urea line as making urea, you can actually transfer that line into an urea plus and other nutrients. Products. But then that requires an update of the technology.
And then the update of the technology, and for the sales also, you have to it's difficult for setting up and getting it done at the field level, because
again,
it's not
then,
easy.
But then your specialty.
And then you are competing your plus end products with your urea only, and urea is at a cheaper price, and then you have to do everything agronomically. You have to tell them, you have to develop the product. So all these things.
But if you look at in the end, and this comes down again how close you are to the grower. You need to understand the requirements of the grower. So urea is usually used by growers in combination with some sulfur or with some phosphate. So they mix it already into their spreaders. And they actually make a kind of NP, NK product at starting or at certain, as a top dressing or as a base dressing. It's never that they purely only look at N. They look at in combination with something. If you understand what the farmer or the grower is asking, and you actually start providing these kind of products, then it can be quite beneficial for them. But I agree. So one hand you sell the urea.
Yes.
And one end you sell urea plus.
At the end of the day, it's nitrogen only, and
this is where the market is going.
Yes.
So you do not stop the development of what growers are demanding, and this is also where in the fertilizer industry where I've been, and then mainly in the potash, we usually believe that we decide, but it's not we decide. It's the growers who ultimately decide. That's usually a kind of different way of thinking.
So next, coming on to the Anglo-American, UK, the Poly 4.
Yeah.
And at that time, how it is, you have been working with such a big producers and everything, and having the basic products, the generic products also, the specialty products also. And now you have to work on the Poly 4, which is kind of a unique technology. How was the challenge at that time?
Well, the challenge at that time is that we had to make take or pay contracts while we didn't even produce the product yet. So the product was still somewhere 1.5 kilometers down in the ground.
Okay.
And we had to...
Can you just in 2 lines explain about this Poly 4? What was it?
Poly 4 is basically a potassium, sulfur, calcium, magnesium product. So it contains 14% K2O. If I, top of my head, 19% sulfur, 17% calcium, and 6% magnesium oxide. So it's a kind of combination between potassium, sulfur, calcium, and magnesium. And the challenge for us at that time is that to be financed, because at that time AA was called Serious Minerals.
Yes.
And Serious Minerals was still looking for financing to finance the mines to actually start digging. And in order to secure these finances, the banks or the investors, they required take or pay contracts. And take or pay means either you sell the whole lot, and if you don't, if they don't supply, then you have to pay anyhow. So you have a guaranteed income.
Okay.
And that is what the investors wanted, especially in such a big mining project. Don't forget, this was a project which I think was around 13 to 14 million ton.
Okay.
And on top of that, it was in a natural reserve in the UK, in the northern part of the UK, in Yorkshire. This is why I moved to York also. And all the facilities had to be underground. So the whole the shaft had to be underground. They transported what they mined into an underground tunnel to Teesside. So that also made the project quite expensive, of course. And in order to finance that, then the investors required us to take these take-or-pays. And that was our main challenge, because it was the product, even though ICL already produced in the mine next to it, in Bolby mine, the product was not that well known. So ICL actually already started to introduce that product, but we had to introduce it more into big quantities. And so my responsibility at that time was also India. So we made a take-or-pay deal with IFCO at that time.
Okay.
So I was very much involved there with Dr. Singh and Mr. Washti and people there, in Kumar,
Yes.
from the head of marketing at that time. And we made a take-or-pay with IFCO. And why did we choose IFCO? Because we believed that IFCO, with all their cooperatives, their network, they had a huge distribution network with 50 million farmers. And they were also looking more for a multi-nutrient kind of product. So this was for us the main challenge. Not so much to explain how the product worked, because I think everybody in the fertilizer industry understood what it was. Everybody saw it. You could use it as a straight. You could actually mix it in an NPK. You can actually do stuff with it. I also worked, as I said with you before, with a urea technology provider, because that's what I started at that time in SABIC, to enter these nutrients into urea. We did some trials with that. So then you start to produce, let's say, a 3205 with calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. We did some samples in the US, and a lot of corn farmers, they liked that product. It was high in N, and it had already...
It's a similar kind of a product like what ICL is doing now, the polysulfate in India?
It's the same. It's the same mine.
It's the same mine.
The same seam.
Okay.
So the product is not different.
Yes.
So it's the same product.
Now this product is picking up very well in India.
Yeah, through IPL.
Yeah, IPL and ICL both.
Yeah. But ICL is selling it, I think, mainly through IPL.
They are giving it to IPL also, and they have their own distribution channel here, so it's going well now.
Yeah.
And after this, then you had the organic.
Yeah, I went through the whole cycle.
Yes.
So I then joined Doctor. They asked me to join them, and that was a small Finnish startup in organics. So that process was you collect organic waste, which was in the form of either chicken manure or slaughterhouse waste, and the whole process was collected, get some ammonia out of it, produce liquid ammonia, and then the rest you put in a biogas installation.
Yes.
Produce methane or biogas. And then what is left, that's the digestate, and that you can then dry and you can pelletize, and it becomes a kind of organic NPK.
Yes.
So that was the project, and we were basically in charge to find investors and start up pilot projects to show that this concept worked. Because the problem with manure, of course, is that you can throw it on the land, but there's a lot of evaporation of ammonia. Yes. I think in the Netherlands it's quite clear manure is a big problem at the moment.
Yes, and it's very difficult to sell also.
Yes.
It's very difficult.
But it's very valuable if you understand what you have to do with it. So, but you can't put manure right away in a biogas installation because there's too much nitrogen or ammonia into it, which inhibits the biogas. So what you first need to do, the first step is to take the ammonia out via certain bacteria. And then you basically then, via an air stripper or a steam stripper, you make liquid ammonium sulfate. And then once you reduce that with 50% ammonia, you can move it in that manure then into a biogas. And then you get the right ratio to produce gas.
Yes.
So to say. And then once that is done, then everything becomes a digestate, and then you can further upgrade that to an organic NPK.
And that you used to export also, or used to sell locally?
We first did some pilot projects, one in Germany. We first started with the liquid ammonium sulfate. So our main task was to actually promote the company with some distributors, again, get the money in from investors, and set up pilot projects. Okay. That was the first start.
Reliance Industries Limited in India, it's a big conglomerate. They are also now entering into this. They have already entered into this, and they are setting up plants in India. And whatever Reliance do, they do it in a big way. So they are also working in it. So the market will grow in India as well.
Organic is, or let's say, because organic is usually quite a big word. Let's say more sustainable fertilizers, recycled fertilizers. Yeah, that will be a big thing, I think. I think you will see a big offtake in these products together with some mineral fertilizer. That's probably the future. That's how I see
when
it.
You have to sell organic, earlier you used to sell so much tonnage. Now the volume decreases slowly. So
it's different.
So being a sales guy, like it affected you?
No, it's actually quite a challenge because First of all, there's a misconception about organic fertilizers, that certain growers don't trust in it. So you first, again, have to show them the benefits. You go back to how you started with your water solubles. It's the same process to actually show the benefits. But this time, the benefits of organic fertilizers takes longer. It's not like you see immediate effect. If you add water soluble NPK via drip irrigation into your system, you see immediate effect.
Yes.
If you use upgraded chicken manure, so to say, it takes some time before you see the benefits, because other than just giving nutrients, it also has certain organic matter and improves the soil.
So that is a big difference. It takes time. When I heard when urea was developing in India, many growers restricted urea. So what the sales guy did in the night, they sprayed in the evening, they sprayed the urea in their farm. And when the grower came next day, it had an immediate effect. You could see the yield. So it was easy to scale up.
Yeah.
But looking into this organic, it takes time, it takes patience.
Yes. Yeah, because it works on both ways, nutrient-wise, but also soil-wise,
health-wise. So you need to educate them and do. And now coming on to the managing director of K+S Middle East, how is that?
Also challenging. I mean,
first, what about managing director?
I'm not a person who is very much onto titles, so give it any name you want to. I mean, in the end, you manage a team of people with the same view, because that's, I think, very important. You need to align the views in your team, that everybody in the team, from order management to finance to sales, that we have the same vision and strategy, and this is what we believe is the right thing to do. So that is actually the main task, and I think we succeeded in that. As a company here, we do around, last year we did around 630,000 metric ton in the region.
Very nice.
With around $250 million revenue we did. That is actually was the main challenge. And K+S, I mean, people in the industry know K+S as a potash producer and a magnesium sulfate producer. We have mines in Germany, we have mines in Canada. We produce MOP, we produce SOP, we produce Kieserite, we produce Epsotop, CMS, corn kali, patent kali. So I think these products are quite well known, also in India.
Yes.
But next to it, what makes this office a bit different than other offices maybe of K+S is that we also do specialty products. Speciality being water solubles, and since last year also organic fertilizers.
Oh, so you have entered into organic also?
Yes, and what makes it then even more special is that in certain countries, like in India, in Kenya and Uganda, we go downstream. So in India, we have 170 people working for us, 65 directly for K+S and the rest via contracted contractors. So to say, we sell directly to the retail. And the way we do that is that we go to the growers, we show them the benefits of certain specialty products, and then we pull them to the retailers to whom we then sell. So it's like a pull and push strategy.
And personally in India, I've seen the growth, so in the Roperia ji, and how it has grown, and the K+S now, I'm not sitting here, but the Indian farmers now know it, they're asking for the brands, and they are doing well.
Yeah, it's a branding. So I don't have to explain, I think, a grower 1919 or 134013 or potassium nitrate or MAP. I think that's not what makes it special. Again, it's about branding, but also the services we give to them. It's not that we just sell and leave. We sell and we actually also advise growers. We are there, we do trials with them. We also introduce new kinds of products. In the end, we try to increase their yields and their income. And that's, I think, the trick in what we see in India, where we have a nice growth.
And SOP, where all you are producing?
Standard SOP and granular SOP, water soluble SOP. We have OEM with certain producers in other areas. We have organic water soluble SOP, and we have, of course, the normal.
What is organic water soluble SOP?
That's produced from sodium sulfate and our MOP. Our MOP is organically certified in Germany.
Okay.
So it's an organically certified product, because the product in Germany which we mine is not let's say how solution mining. It's really a mineral which we mine, and that's
Okay.
organically certified in Germany. So the input plus then the sodium sulfate, which is naturally mined in that area in Turkey. These two together, you can then produce a high K2O content organically certified water soluble SOP.
Okay. So this is how the organic certified. And does it, how it is different in the field on the trials? The organic certified.
Again,
It's
with
more
this
or less
SOP, the results is usually the same. The content is higher, so you can apply a bit less. But the organically certified means we can actually sell it into organic farming, but we can also sell this in normal farming. And the majority of what we sell, this organic SOP, is still in normal farming.
And why is the name K plus S?
Kali and salts.
Kali and salts.
Kali means in German potassium, and salts it means salt, and that refers back to the mine.
And before we move on to the next session, I'll just quickly ask you in 1 or 2 lines, explain about the areas you have been in, like with your expertise and this thing, like where is the agriculture at this present level, say for example in North Africa, in Africa market, North Africa and East Africa, Turkey, Levant area, Pakistan, India, and GCC, where you are exporting your products. So how is the agriculture developed in these areas? Like where it's in the specialty stage or the growing stage, which stage it is?
I would say
I'll just quickly say you just one line, like North Africa.
They're still, I would say, between developing and developed. I would say it's still a lot of, you can still improve a lot of things, but we're already going in the direction of what you see in Northern Europe.
Okay.
So Morocco, Algeria, these markets are actually already going into the next stage.
So there's a good potential
there. Yeah. Egypt. Yeah.
And East Africa?
That's really developing right now. So that's still more commodity fertilizers. It starts with the normal NPK blends right now. The focus on potash. I think everybody is underestimating the value and the need of potash in East Africa. But that's certainly in speciality still developing.
Okay. And GCC area?
Same as North Africa, I would say. It's going in the direction that technologies are getting more advanced. But also there, it's similar, like I would say Morocco, Algeria.
Okay. Thank you. And now we'll go on to the next session where we'll talk about, in general, the specialty fertilizer and organic fertilizer across the globe. Like in 2 sentences, can you differentiate how's the selling of or developing business of specialties versus organic is different?
Not that much, actually. I would say you still need the same tactics. You need to show the benefits. As I said, the products, of course, are completely different. Each have their own specifics. Whether you focus on nutrients or you focus on soil enhancement, but you need to actually show the grower the benefits, short term or long term.
Okay.
So I don't really, the strategy we're using for organics are not that different than what we use for water solubles.
So it's almost the same ball game. What even you consider?
What is different, of course, is the knowledge of the product. So you need to understand how chicken manure-based products work, and what are the deficiencies of certain products, how the nitrogen works in chicken manure versus, let's say, a water-soluble NPK. But in essence, the way you set it up is for me about the same, I would say.
Okay. And by 2050, the world population is estimated around 9.8 billion.
Yeah.
So how specialty fertilizer and organic fertilizer would play their role in the fertilizer chain?
Very important, I would say. There's always this saying that we need to produce more fertilizer because people need more food. I have my own view on that, to be very frank. I think we already produce enough food for 9 billion people. So it's not about producing more food, it's more about the redistribution of food. And do we need to really use large areas to produce animal feed to eat more meat? But okay, that's my personal thing. Do we need to produce more fertilizers? On the IFA, there's always these discussions. I believe in certain fertilizers we probably need to produce more, maybe not in other areas. So I would say in the specialty industry, it is important to look at the water solubles and organics. So there, I believe you will see a jump. And on the organics, I believe we need to focus more on the local, regional production rather than producing it, let's say, in Europe and then moving it around the world. That's crazy. So we should focus more on the reuse of waste, whether that's organic waste or food waste or whatever waste we produce, and then see if we can turn that into nutrients for regional consumption. I think that is an important point. But these two products, I see as a big role to play in producing food where the availability of water becomes less.
Yes, that is the
and the amount of land
will
arable
also be
land
will
becomes
also
less.
less.
So
And
the
the
stress,
labor issue
yeah.
and labor issue will also be there, and other things will also be there.
Yes.
So looking into this, we need a high-end fertilizer like
think more
specialty
specialized
fertilizer
fertilizers
where the utilization of the same NPKs are more.
Yes, correct.
So what are the main three challenges of the growth for the specialty and organic? What do you see? Which are if we
Knowledge, I would say knowledge, so knowledge transfer. We do a lot of business in East Africa. You see a lot of foreign greenhouses producing flowers to be exported back to Europe, so that we have flowers for Valentine's or whatever, Mother's Day. And then the grower next door, who has a small plot of mangoes or whatever, he is not eating into that knowledge, so to say. So I would say knowledge transfer is quite important, and therefore also price. What we do, for instance, in East Africa is that we try to give the grower more knowledge, but also formulate with our local NPK facility in Uganda formulations which, it doesn't have to be a BMW, it can also be a Toyota, so to say.
Yes.
You start with a very simple formulation which already makes a lot of sense for him or her. So money is quite important. But I would say those are the two main. I think knowledge transfer and money. Third one I still need to think about. Let me come back to you on that.
So give our audience overview about the new fertilizer registration process in general. What is like if we have to register new fertilizer in Europe, Africa and Asia?
That the governments need to make it much more accessible and easier to I understand the need that there needs to be a proper regulation in place, that we know for sure that we produce and distribute and sell legal and proper fertilizers. But sometimes the processes, I have the feeling like in India, for instance, the process that the FCO,
Yes.
that for every new formulation you have to go through a whole hoo-ha to get it into the FCO. But also in East Africa, it takes 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 years before you get a new product in. I think that is important. If you want to you want to give the farmers better knowledge, the governments also need to facilitate that. But I understand there is a need to have a proper regulation in place that you get the right nutrients. So yes, it needs to be there, but it needs to be more efficient and
more
quicker.
Efficient. Like
Yes.
it should not take like 1 year, 2
Or
years, 3
2
years,
seasons
three,
or 3
seasons down the line.
Yeah, because these products have already been sold in other areas. You can also tap into that knowledge to say, okay, well, obviously it's already proven their track record. They have a proven track record over there. So why do we have to reinvent the wheel? I understand how politicians sometimes think.
Yes.
Of course, I get that. But it's not beneficial to their own farmers.
Yeah, actually, if you have a good product, it should be immediately sold to the farmer with a limited time span for the registration. And
As I said, I understand the need for regulation. You should not just allow it like that.
Yeah.
I get that, but it needs to be a bit more efficient, I would say.
And before we moving on to the next question, we were discussing about the challenge. When you talked about India, I felt like the third challenge about the specialty and the organic fertilizer development is the subsidy also. Like,
Yes. Oh, stop about that. Yeah.
yeah. So we have so much subsidy there. So your third
Yeah.
point completes here, because then it's difficult to compete with a product like urea, which is at such a low level and such a low cost
Yeah.
available there. And
Yeah, the subsidy in India, of course, we all understand where it's coming from, but at a certain point, it starts to actually be counter-effective. Farmers will only take nutrients which are the cheapest,
Yes, yes,
which actually will not benefit their yields.
yes,
So it's actually counterproductive, I would say. I think a lot of Indian fertilizers, and correct me if I'm wrong, fertilizer companies, they're not very happy with the subsidy, because it's also a cash flow issue for them.
yes, it's a big cash flow issue, and like it's like our annual budget of the subsidy is 1 lakh crore of Indian rupees annually minimum.
Yeah.
So this is a huge cash flow, and things are there, but government of India is doing and coming out it's with own innovative way. They are now producing nano fertilizers in India, which
Yeah, I understand.
which will replace the urea. What is your say on that?
Let's wait and see.
Okay. So next question is, K plus has a good potash reserve. Which are the top 5 potash producing nations, and how do you foresee the trends in the next 5 years?
Well, the top 5, of course, are in Belarus, in Russia, and Canada. These are big producers in the world. K plus S, depending a little bit on, I would say, whether certain sanctions are still in place. We're either number 4 or number 5. We produce around, in total, 7.5 million ton of products. I think around 6.5 million ton of potash. As I said, we have 2 mines, one in Germany and one in Canada. I foresee that for the potash, if you ask specifically about potash, I mean, China and Brazil are the main countries which are growing in potash consumption. I think China already in 2024 consumed 17 or 18 million tons of potash. And Brazil was close to 16 million. But the next area, of course, is Africa. I believe Africa is, I would say, one of these big engines for potash use. There's not a lot of focus on potash. There's a lot of focus on NPK.
Yes.
Because everybody believes there's enough potash in the soil. Could be, but is it then also readily available? That's another agronomic question. Yes. But also over the years, with all this not applying potash, you also take potash out of the soil.
Yes.
And we do trials in Africa, and we see also, as K plus S, that once you start to apply either potassium chloride or SOP or corn kali or patent kali, that you actually get a very good result. So it already directly has an effect. So East Africa or South Africa or West Africa for us is the future. India, I would say, depends a lot on the subsidy. I think if there was not a subsidy, of course, the consumption of potash would go down, but that actually would also be a good base to start actually developing the potash industry. Without the subsidy, and you really start to develop potash demand in India, I do believe it can easily go up to 8-9 million tons.
Yes.
That's my belief. But because of a subsidy, which then usually is around 4 to 5 million tons, if the price is okay, the subsidy is affordable for the farmer, then okay, it goes up to 4 million ton, then it goes down to 2 million tons.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And we don't have a potash reserve here in India, so everything is imported.
This is what I never understood. Why an Indian big multinational would not, fertilizer multinational would not team up with a potash producer.
So you can give a message through our podcast to this.
Maybe the government needs to think like the Chinese, what they're doing in Laos, where they invest in mines. I think for the Indian government it would make a lot of sense actually to align themselves with a potash producer, take a share in a mine, for instance.
Yes.
If that is the case, or if that's feasible, or actually look in other parts of the world, like the Chinese are doing, to secure their input of potash.
And one more thing, like now with the CIQ coming up in China, like for the past 2 years, the potash SOP, if you talk about the water soluble, is not coming from the China. So did you get an advantage for your sales?
Yeah, in the end, that you see because of the SOP, the Chinese SOP, water soluble SOP, disappearing from the market because of the CIQ. Of course,
Yeah.
the price went
Price
up.
hike.
So it's just a typical supply and demand. It's not that all of a sudden there's a huge shortage in India because the other producers. There's a lot of projects coming up, of course. I just came back also from Pakistan. There's a lot of Pakistani producers now going into SOP, water soluble SOP. So there's still ample availability of water soluble SOP. But yeah, the problem, of course, with water soluble SOP, if you go in Mannheim, is the hydrochloric acid.
Yes.
So that's a bit of a downside. Yeah, we could get a higher price for our water soluble SOP everywhere, not only in India, but that settles right now again. So there we see that basically things stabilize.
And one more thing, what is your opinion about the CIQ, which is there in the China for the past almost like 3 years now, and which has been like fluctuating the market like anything, the international market. Like we and you are sitting here, suddenly we'll get a message that MAP is now under CIQ.
And who blames them, right? Because if you understand a little bit of where the Chinese are coming from, don't forget the Chinese Communist Party found their roots in farming.
Yes.
Their background is from the farmers. So what they don't want is to import inflation into their country. Which inflation would mean that food prices in China go up, and that's what they don't want. So rather than exporting MAP and then exposing that to an international market where prices are on the up, rather than close off the market or making it more difficult, but keep food prices, the ultimate food prices, at least that's what I believe, keep that under control. So yeah, you can't blame them.
You can't blame them. You can't understand.
And that also underlines that maybe we have not been so clever over the last 20 years that we allowed ourselves to be more dependent on the Chinese for certain products like MAP, calcium nitrate. Yes. So yeah, who's the clever guy in this game?
There's the Chinese.
Yeah. So
they can increase the price, they can decrease the price, everything.
Well, they dictate the flow.
Yes, they dictate the flow.
Obviously, like products.
MAP in India has gone from like 700 levels to the 1600, 1700 level. People have still bought it, and people have bought it from the Chinese. So the things are there. So the dependency is there, and. One more is that, like, as you have worked in China, we are curious to know about the below. Just in brief, how is the Chinese fertilizer market locally in China?
It specializes more. So we see more and more specialization in nitrogen. So nitrogen plus something. We see more into the water solubles, at least that's what I've seen. There's a huge offtake in organic products. Call it sustainable products. Don't call it organic. Then call it sustainably, locally recycled products. I think the Chinese understand the balance of nutrients and healthy soils. So that is something we see is coming up. So they're becoming more specialized.
And how China has become a big fertilizer and export hub. Locally, like you have been there, like how they are doing, like when we are sitting here in Dubai, we can see how a desert has been converted into a big city where everybody from the world are coming in and settling down. So how China is becoming such a big fertilizer hub and export hub?
It's of course same as India. It's a big agricultural market. So there's a lot of food production was going on. So they have been able to attract a lot of foreign investment, but also local investment into this industry. So the main issue in China is always that there has always been an overcapacity.
Okay.
So KNO3, for instance, I think if I say this right, if you look at all the capacity in China, it's over 1 million ton. But that doesn't mean they produce 1 million ton. They maybe produce only 400,000 or 500,000 ton. But that was the same when I was working for Akzo Nobel. There was a huge overcapacity in certain chemicals. So the tendency in China has always been that once they saw it was interesting, the government then right away saw, okay, invest in that industry, and then there was this huge rush to go into it. So you have a huge overcapacity.
Overcapacity, and then you have to export it.
Yeah, export or part of the factory is standing still.
Okay. And last question, what a young entrepreneur wants to start something new?
Yeah.
What do you feel like the new technologies he should work upon which will fetch good growth in the next 5 years
The
in the
technologies.
fertilizer technologies?
Okay. That's a good one, actually. I would say an interest in the specialty industry. That's quite interesting. Don't focus only on making money, but actually take the money part out. Actually, invest in something you believe makes sense and what you like to do. But I would say, the more specialized product. I don't know, and I'm not really updated on, let's say, these drone things, and that's maybe I'm too old for that. I don't know. It certainly helps.
Yes, India is picking up drone very well.
Yes. I think it helps you to see where there's already nitrogen or phosphate or potassium, and where they actually locally you have to apply it. That could be interesting. But ultimately, what I always like is to actually go to areas where farmers have not been using a lot of fertilizer and actually start to expand on these more specialized products, because you can see an immediate advantage. And yes, then all the innovations come to light as well to help them with, does your soil contain a lot of nitrogen, or so we should not apply that much nitrogen or phosphate or potassium. That is something which could also be interesting. I would say, but ultimately it is about giving the grower more yield and better product.
Better product. At the end of the day,
That's
everything
what
boils down to this only.
Yeah, and that boils down to the right nutrients at the right time.
And now we have ended this technical session. Just two questions from my personal side. Yeah, like you have been growing and changing the field, say for example, the potash, urea, organic, different technologies. A person who is doing this thing, what is your advice for that, for adaptability and change for the young management?
Do what you like. I mean, as I said, my interest has always been business and product development. Call it, and then give your title an MD title, whatever. But you are in an area which is growing and which becomes more important in terms of food production. You see, I go a lot to the field. You see the deficiencies in the field, and it's easy to actually expand on that, and it's easy to transfer that, and then you know what you need to do. But then, how do you need to do that? How do you bring that knowledge to the grower? And how can you bring it affordably to the grower, rather than only thinking about what is best for your company? Because my belief is, if you show the grower that it works and that he actually makes money out of the products they use, they will always stay with you.
Stay with you, right? And what are the two habits and qualities what made Olaf today what he is today?
I would say don't be afraid to take the responsibility, both in your good and your bad things. So also stand up for something if it fails. But okay, I've made enough mistakes in my life, and also say, okay, that was wrong. But also trust people. Okay. I think trust plays a big thing, especially in our industry, in farming. Whether you deal with a large importer, a distributor, a joint venture, customers, local people, your local employees, you need to trust people that they take the responsibility to actually execute. And I think those two things: take your responsibility for the actions you take, good or bad, but also trust people around you, and then build your team. To actually execute. The strategy. And what I also find important is to have at least a long-term strategy, vision, whatever. But if you believe that this is the right way to go, I'm very convinced, for instance, in Africa, that potash is an important product or will become more important. Then as a company, we also need to invest in there. And that means sometimes you make or lose some money.
Yes.
But over the long run, you set your brand there, you actually grow the business, and you will benefit from that, because everybody will know that you've been there already for a long time. So that is basically... what
That's
I would
very
say.
nice. Yes, thank you. And one personal question, if you would like to share, you can share. I just learned coming to your house that you married a princess. How did that
Yes.
happen?
I met her when I was moving to Beijing.
Okay,
That was in 2000, and she was working then in Beijing. Her father was the second ambassador in Beijing on the Ugandan embassy, and she was working in Beijing at that time for a real estate company.
okay.
And I was looking for an apartment, moving from Chengdu to Beijing, and that's how we got to meet each other. And then from one thing came to another.
And this was which year?
This was in 2000. So, and then we got married. We started to live together in 2001. We got married in 2005. We got married in the Netherlands by law. Then we got married in church in Shanghai for the church. And then we also had our African wedding, the Conjula in Uganda. This is the introduction period.
And how was that wedding? Like,
Very African, very interesting. So it's more like an introduction. So it's not so the two families.
and especially when you were coming from the king's lineage.
Yeah. So it's like the two families sit opposite each other. So first of all, you need to be accepted to enter the house as a foreign family, so to say, or as a non-part of their family. So you sit on one side, and then on the other side sits their family, and then there's a kind of negotiation going on. So they first need to identify why I am here, and then what you need, and then you need to actually start giving some gifts, because in the end they will allow you to take one of their daughters into your family. And for that, you need to exchange
Gifts.
gifts. So we get cows and goats, and chicken, Dutch cheese, milk, salt, beer, these kind of things. And then in the end, the father agrees that there's in this exchange, and then according to their tradition, then you're married. But you could see it as an introduction ceremony.
It's
So
basically
more
an
traditional.
introduction, traditional ceremony.
Yes.
And what happened in Shanghai and Netherlands? That was a normal church marriage.
Yeah, so because I'm Dutch, so we got married by law. So in the Netherlands, marrying in the church doesn't mean a lot. It's legal when you do it by law.
Okay.
So we did it legally by law because we wanted to do that in Holland for my family. Then for all our friends and also extended family, mine and hers, we did it in church because that was also important to her. So it was in the Xujiahui Church in Shanghai, which is an old French-style church in Shanghai. That was also in 2005 in November. And then later we went to Uganda to do that, the Kwanjula. So
Okay.
they call it.
So that's a great story.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So now we'll move on to the rapid fire, where you just need to answer between 1 or 2 lines
Okay.
maximum. So I'll start with the rapid fire. 3 important qualities you look in a person when you hire.
Knowledge. Let me think. Knowledge. I would say also be able to take track record, of course, and a willingness to take responsibility.
Okay. If not into fertilizers or agriculture, what Olaf would have been doing?
A pilot.
Oh,
I always wanted to be a fighter pilot, but because my eyes are not in order.
maybe you can do after your retirement with AI.
Yeah,
something.
maybe. I don't know. Now I always wanted to be a pilot.
Okay. A management trainee joining today, what a quick advice you will give him to climb up the long ladder?
Don't focus on money. Focus on what you like to do. If you only focus on money, you never get there. You need to focus on what you like. Then the money will follow.
What is the one new thing you are looking forward to learn?
Come again?
What is the one new thing you are looking forward to learn?
More in technology, I would say. I mean, I'm still probably from the old generation, so more into this AI stuff, more in the technology-wise, because I believe even though I'm not very keen on it, it still will play a very important role in our lives.
Biggest challenge you have ever faced in your career?
Biggest challenge we've ever faced in our career was some joint ventures, the management of some joint ventures.
Any decision which you want to go back and change?
Not really.
Not really.
No. No.
No.
No.
A moment in your life when you realize that you are born to do what you're doing now.
The moment you go into the field and actually you see that you bring a grower from point A to point B, and they actually start to thank you. So in Africa, for instance, we have guys who grow coffee who didn't use fertilizers, and they had to make decisions between buying a bag of fertilizer and sending their kids to school. And because of some of the fertilizers we introduced, they actually can send their kids to school and also make more money. And so they can actually send their kids also abroad.
Nice. Take us through your daily routine quickly.
Waking up at 5:30 because my kids go to school at 6:20. Then usually leave here at 7:15. Go through all my emails. Arriving in the office at 7. If I'm in Dubai, let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Then in the office around 7:45. Go through my emails, and then usually days full of meetings, either with the office or with customers. And other than that, my second life is on the airport.
Okay, yeah.
So being in the lounge, waiting for my plane to go wherever it needs to take me.
Your advice to handle stress and anxiety?
Usually things will be okay, don't worry. Even though you have outstanding debt or whatever, or money not coming in from customers, or things don't go the way, everything in the end will always be okay.
Who is your professional role model?
My professional role model? I don't have one, to be very frank. No, I don't have one. I don't have really a role model.
Role model. You are just living up your life.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I don't think I have somebody. I respected a lot my boss in Action Nobel. He taught me.
His name?
Jim Enters.
Okay.
He taught me a lot about proper management. So in that sense, he could be a role model for me.
And what's your favorite productivity hack?
My what?
Favorite productivity hack, like how you feel be productive for.
How am I the most productive?
Yes.
You say? Yeah, by being in the field, I would say, being with customers. I don't like to sit in an office and then have to go through all your stuff. It's more the interaction with customers to understand. Like last time I went to Pakistan 2 weeks ago. And, there's been a lot of talk about that country as well. I think it goes in a very good direction there as well. But actually go there and sit with growers, and then you start to understand, you become more productive.
And what's your most exciting project you have ever worked on?
Most exciting project I ever worked on, there's a couple. That's Dutch airport in Chengdu, which we actually were able to get and to build that airport. Also the potassium nitrate factory in Chengdu, that was also quite a project. And of course the 2 water-soluble NPK plants, one in China and one in India, I would say.
Are you a goal-oriented person or a process-oriented?
Well, a little bit of both, I would say. Yeah, I would like to have a goal, because otherwise it's difficult to work to something. But to get to a goal, you also need certain processes. Otherwise, it becomes a bit of a mayhem sometimes.
Your advice for time management?
Time management means also that you need to trust and be able to delegate, so that other people can actually do their job, and that you actually get projects done in time. If you go micromanagement, then forget it. So time management depends really on how you set up your team and how you delegate in your team and trust the people to take the responsibility.
3 books you want to recommend to our viewers?
Recently I read Sapiens from Harari, this Israeli writer, which is quite interesting. I read, of course, a lot of books about Chinese history, so Wild Swans is a kind of interesting one. And of course there's a Dutch book, in English is translated Dark Room of Damocles, which is also a very good book. But that's a Dutch book, so I'm not sure if you guys are able to read that.
But anyway, the people watching in the Dutch will do that.
Yeah. So that I think is a very interesting book. But there's many interesting books, so to say. But these just spring out.
And now we are ending this podcast. If a young agri graduate is there in any part of the world, what message you would like to give him based on your experience. You can watch on the camera and give it.
Okay, I would really advise, follow your heart. If you really believe in what you do, and you really believe that this is the path you want to choose, then follow that. I think that is the most important thing, because ultimately, if you do what you like, fortune usually will come.
Thank you, Olaf, for this wonderful podcast. Hope it has been a good experience.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for having us here. And thank you once again.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.